picture of a lot of people. A lot of people trying to get on a train. Train happens to be in India. It shows the population is out of control in India. Well, guess what? That phenomena, that's not exclusive to India. It happens all over the world. Population's growing. This slide here shows you the Transparency International Index of Corruption. They do this survey every year where they talk to people and they ask them what they think of the public sector. And what we find is that pretty much all over the world, people think that government's corrupt, and it's growing. Heck, our world economy looks like an EKG. It's nuts. And unemployment all over the world continues to be a struggle. I mean, even our institutions of higher education are having to trade that which they hold dear with respect to learning for the tuition generation machine so they can be sustainable. And probably most concerning of all is that right before our very eyes, Miley has lost her innocence. Here's the thing. We're in tremendous times of turmoil. And those tremendous times of turmoil are going to require something a little different than maybe what's happened in the past. In the past, we could say, hey, science, technology, save us. But the reality is, that's not going to work this time. Because it's not a science issue. It's a social issue. And when we're talking about social issues, really what we need are real change and real leadership. It's kind of interesting because what we're calling for is much different than just a change. In fact, we're calling for a revolution, a leadership revolution. Dorothy Day said that the greatest challenge of our day is how to bring about a revolution of the heart. A revolution which has to start with each one of us. It's pretty profound. But what she's really talking about here is that if we ever aspire to have this collective goal reached, it first starts with what's inside of each one of us. Now, we get the process. I mean, it's just learning. I mean, we inject a cognitive stimulus into the environment, and that creates this affective response where our attitudes shift in a particular direction. And then this behavioral change comes out of that. I mean, it's a big duh. It's just learning, right? But the thing is, it's not a big duh. In fact, it's this complex, emotionally convoluted, big quagmire of information that really presents us with some trouble. And so, what are we going to do? How are we going to address this? When I search for the answer, I obviously go to popular culture, right? What's interesting, because in 1992, there was this amazing group of females who brought forth knowledge to our lives with this really incredible song. In the song, it said, "Free your mind, and the rest will follow." That was by En Vogue. Now, what we know about En Vogue was that they were a group of highly talented neuroscientists and psychologists who decided to go into music to make money. No, not the case. But their words remain true. Just like in 1992, they remain true today. If we're going to have any hope of dealing with these complex adaptive issues, we first need to remove our psychological and environmentally imposed barriers so we can change our mind. We can free ourselves. So, how do we do that? For the last decade, I've been working with this amazing individual named Nicole Stedman on some really groundbreaking research. And Nicole and I have come up with what we think is a process for how we can actually address this change, how we can practice leadership, how we can create a leadership revolution. What that is called emotionally engaged thinking. And it's really cool because it's the combination of the neuroscience of the brain with the building of capacity for real human change. It's pretty awesome. So what happens with respect to emotionally engaged thinking is that we have all of these things going on inside of our brains, okay? Within our temporal lobe, we have two different things. We have the hippocampus and we have the amygdala. In our hippocampus, that's where all our experiences reside. And in our amygdala, that's where all our emotions reside. And so what we do is with emotionally engaged thinking, we remove those barriers and we pull that stuff out to the prefrontal cortex so we can actually access it, assign meaning to it, and then use it. Until we do that, it's locked in there. Consider a traffic jam. All these cars going in different directions. Within our brains, we have emotions and we have experiences and we have a sheer crazy amount of cognitive stimuli that is going on. And we can attend to all that. But how do we use that in an effective way? What EET does is it becomes the traffic cop that gets us through the intersection in an effective way. It leads to leadership. So the question becomes, how do we see this? Well, we see this in a variety of different areas. And the reason why we see it in a variety of different areas is because it's transferable to all kinds of different contexts, regardless of human or environmental variables. And so let me give you a couple examples so you can understand how this works. This is my first day as a lifeguard. I had my red shorts on, had my whistle around my neck, had my sweet new shades that I had bought, and I looked good. I mean, really good. So I was heading off for a fun day of tanning and girl watching, right? I was not prepared for the reality that I was about to have happen in my life. My first day as a lifeguard, I saw somebody drown. Now, they weren't in my area of the water, but that doesn't mean it hit me any softer. It was a powerful experience because I realized maybe I could have done more. Maybe I could have helped my friends see the person. Maybe we could have got there. It was my first day of lifeguarding, though. I didn't know what was going on. So after that, I had tons of emotional distress. I talked to a psychologist. I used to have these nightmares where I would fall asleep in my dreams, and I would actually be falling asleep in my lifeguard chair, and the person who actually drowned would grab me and say, "Wake up." It was pretty crazy. But unknowingly, what happened that day, and after I reflected on that process, is the outcome of emotionally engaged thinking. There was a significant experience that forced me not only to change my way of thinking, but change attitudes and behaviors associated with that way of thinking. What became an opportunity for tanning and watching girls and kind of just enjoying the sun and fun of the water park became an opportunity to see purpose in my life, to work with people and hopefully take care of them. This is a profound shift from where I was. And that shift happened by accident. I didn't ask for someone to drown that day. But the reality of the situation is that it did happen. Now, EET, or emotionally engaged thinking, what that does is it makes the process intentional. We can actually create an experience where we go into your brain and move things to where they need to be. So, here's the thing. It's replicable. It's great. But let's apply it to someplace else. Right now, at the University of Florida, I have the amazing opportunity to deal with this number. We deal with this number through this initiative called Challenge 2050, which is awesome. We're really changing the way we address things through the students we serve. But what we're doing is we're addressing this number, 7.14 billion people. I checked it out earlier today. That's a lot of people, right? Well, the UN reports that in 2050, there'll be 9.6 billion people on our Earth. That's even more people. And what's really scary is by the year 2100, we're looking at 14 billion people. That makes a big problem exponentially bigger. I mean, where are we going to live? Cities are expanding at an alarming rate due to urban sprawl and rural flight. What are we going to eat? Agricultural production is going to have to double to meet our needs by the year 2050. And what about power? We're going to have to triple our energy production to get there. I mean, then there's climate change, and on and on and on. You guys get the picture. We're in a bit of a pickle here. There was actually a book written last year by a guy named Stephen Emmett who addressed this very thing. It was titled 10 Billion. And in the book, Emmett writes that we need significant human shifts, human behavioral shifts, to lead us to addressing an issue like this. But spoiler alert, on the last page of the book, he writes that he doesn't think it's going to happen. He doesn't even think that there's hope. I beg to differ. But how do I get the students in my classes to differ with Emmett? And what's even more, pick up the torch of leadership and address the Challenge 2050? Well, we do this in a variety of different ways. First of all, we change the environment. We take them out of the classroom and the community becomes their classroom. When they can fully engage in the community, they build knowledge for themselves and they become the stewards of that knowledge, and they demonstrate their expertise because they own the challenge. Next thing we need to do is we need to challenge the goal of education. The goal of education is not to open up somebody's head and dump in a bunch of knowledge. I mean, as a faculty member, there were times in the long time ago past where someone could walk into the room and they would be the smartest person in the room. They would have the most knowledge. But today, there's somebody who's way smarter than us in every classroom. Google. They have all the knowledge in the world, right? Well, guess what they don't have? They don't have how we address this challenge. And so by changing the goal, we change the opportunity for us. We also change the way we assess knowledge and the way that we assess our student learning, okay? We need to get rid of tests and quizzes. And the reason why we get rid of tests and quizzes is because they create crisis, which just takes into account that emotionally convoluted traffic jam again. It makes it worse for us. What we need to do is we need to have them create YouTube videos, and we need to have them engage in writing white papers. We need to have them presenting to real people in real positions, politicians, people who are at the decision-making level, because then it becomes authentic for them, becomes real. So here's the thing. If emotionally engaged thinking is the what, the FACE approach is the how. So what Nicole and I have developed is a 4-phase process that kind of gets us to the point where we can actually practice complex adaptive leadership. So the first piece of that, starts with an F, is the foundational awareness. By bringing students in, having them discuss their narrative, figure out why they are the way they are, it provides a platform for how then they can address what's going on in the world around them, how they can interact with the people, and hopefully use influence to empower change. The second thing is authentic engagement. I mentioned before that we have them meet with real people, real opportunities. Well, here's the thing. If I'm in a class and it's not a real challenge, where's the stake? Where's the accountability? Challenge 2050, 7.14 billion, possibly going to 14 billion, that's a real challenge. So they authentically engage in that process. And that realness creates something meaningful. The third piece is connective analysis. We have to look at it from a systems perspective. No one's siloed anymore in higher education. No one's siloed anymore in the world. Everything's interconnected, and so if we don't look at the systems, we're missing the point of the challenge. And finally, that leads to empowerment and change. The people are different. Now, here's the thing. When we roll this out, we don't tell them what we're doing. We're a little sneaky about it. And they struggle with that. They resist the change. They say, Tony, give me the parameters. I need a target to shoot for. But then something happens a couple weeks into class. They know they don't have the answers. But they begin to believe me when I say that I have every confidence in their ability to find those answers. It's powerful because they change their way of thinking. And when they do that, they're able to get to a different product, a different whole. And what it comes to eventually is that fully authentic practice. I love this quote. A powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. It's interesting because my challenge is population management, development of sustainable communities, and the empowerment of this complex adaptive thinking in those that I serve. But I have a question for you. What's your passion? What's your challenge? I encourage you to think about that and employ your emotionally engaged thinking so you can hopefully write a verse that's capable of changing that which you hold dear. Thank you.